RPM, 930 horsepower, hurling him down the straight, one corner to go. You can put a cigarette paper between the wheels.
He's so close, he's wheel to wheel once again, but it is a very tricky part of the track. Oh, and he wanted to go down the inside.
I can't believe it.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
Greetings, Formula One fans. Thank you for joining us at the LookBack Podcasts for another edition of the Formula One LookBack Show. I'm Nick, and I'm sitting here with
Will
and Phill.
European Grand Prix 1993. It's good to have you guys back. It's good to be doing another LookBack show. This was a good one.
It was very good.
Rainy one, short one.
Another rainy one.
Yeah.
Another rainy, and yeah, a lot shorter than the last one. That's
why
sure.
are all the rainy ones the good ones?
Well, that's a theme in Formula One, but I'm sure we'll see more of that as we go forward with the LookBack series. If you don't already, guys, go give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at the LookBack Show. Send us a DM, questions for topics for roundtables, LookBack shows, championship LookBack shows, anything we do here over at the LookBack Podcast. That's how you can get in contact with us. If you want to send us an email, it's gmail.com, the LookBackShow@gmail.com, not just gmail.com. That's that one. You might get a lot of different people for that. Head over to iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, and Google Play if you want to get the show or listen to it. That's probably where you're listening to it now, but hit the 5 stars. We'd much appreciate that. Subscribe, like, share. Leave us a comment, preferably a good one. Like we always say, that would be good. If you want a t-shirt with the Formula One LookBack logo, the LookBack Show logo, or even the Pro Wrestling LookBack logo, head over to teespring.com/the LookBack Show. You can find all that stuff there. If you want to get in contact with me for any reason, I don't know why you would, but if you do, give me a follow on Instagram or Twitter at Celsa, SCELSA.
If you want to get in contact with me, Will, I'm on Twitter at LateralG, LaterelG.
And if you want to get in contact with me, Phill, you can get me on Twitter at Honda Tech Phill.
And yeah, that's everyone. Like I said, the main one there is at the LookBack Show. Give us a follow. Stay in contact. Let us know what you think of the shows and give us ideas for future shows if you're interested in that too. But we are going to get to it, and we are here. We're ready to go. European Grand Prix 1993. I got a little sound effect. It doesn't really come from the year 1993, but I feel like it's very, it relates.
Yeah, that relates really well, actually.
I figured as much, since this race was filled with what was the total? 69 pit stops total across the board.
Solid 69.
Check out episode 69 of the Roundtable being released soon.
That's a lot of pit stops, but it's Donington. You're in the middle of like the UK, right? So it's just rain off and on, off and on.
Literally, it was like somebody who was controlling the rain with a light switch upstairs, and they're like, "Yeah, turn it on for a bit. Nope, turn it off. Yeah. Turn it back on." It was a wild one. I'm happy. I mean, kudos to Will. You kind of chose this one for us, it being the second Formula One LookBack show that we're doing now under the LookBack Podcast. But it was a good one. I'm happy we watched it. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning and how, like a few minutes ago, how short it was compared to the previous Formula One LookBack show. We did a Canadian Grand Prix 4.5 hour race. It was nice to switch it up here and get kind of the shorter hour and 10 minute. What was the total? I think it was I had it written down here.
The broadcast.
1 hour, 10 minutes and 45 seconds. 45.8 seconds. I know last time you guys were big on me because I wasn't getting that third decimal place, and you told me it's a Formula One show. I need the third decimal place. So don't worry. I got third decimal places all over my notes today, boys. But we might as well get into some of the stats, my little track stats, race day stats of the day. This race took place on April 11th, 1993. I want to shout out to my dad because that would have been his birthday. I'm not very good at math, so I can't figure out how old he was, or I'm not going to figure out how old he was at this moment. But the location of the track, we talked about it very briefly. Donington Park in Lancaster or Lancashire. I'm not 100% how to pronounce it. But in the UK, this is kind of one of the reasons you chose this race for us to look back at was because you knew that this was Will I'm speaking to now. I didn't really make that clear. They only went to this track once, and it was called the European Grand Prix. It wasn't the UK. It wasn't the British Grand Prix. This was the European Grand Prix. I'm assuming
they still had a British Grand Prix this year
in that this 1993 season.
I don't know if it was at Silverstone or Brands Hatch. I'm not sure, but I know they still had a British Grand Prix, and they just added this one as a European.
Yeah, I can maybe find out which track it was at later when we get talking more, but I think probably Silverstone, but I don't know for sure, so we should probably check that out afterwards. But yeah, length of the track is 4.023 kilometers, right down to the third decimal place. The race distance of 76 laps, or 305.748 kilometers. Pretty long, but not the longest.
Yeah.
Not the long.
It
Like
was
the short.
It's a fairly shorter track. Only like a minute 20 a lap in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was in
and
mixed conditions.
absolutely. And 4.2 kilometers isn't, or 4.0 kilometers isn't very long, I feel, in
No.
comparison to some of the tracks that we see in modern Formula One.
And even if you look at the layout itself isn't like anything too spectacular. It's not anything too tricky. It's mostly high-speed corners.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like that, I mean, as we saw, creates better racing. I'm sure the weather was a big factor in this one at least, but it created some good stuff. One thing I got to get in here, what an awesome name, the Sega European Grand Prix. Can I get it? Can we do it in sync here? 1, 2, 3. Sega. Yeah, we're 90s kids here, so you're going to be getting some of that from us. Don't you worry about that. And then the only other, I guess, small thing I wanted to mention, just like we talked about, the weather was on and off. It was you wouldn't really be able to call this a dry race or a wet race confidently to say it's one of the other. I think it's a little bit of both. It has to be.
I believe it was Murray that put it best as a moist race.
I missed that, but that's awesome, and that's a great segue because on commentary we had the legendary one-time world champion, as most remember, James Hunt, and the even more legendary commentary voice of Murray Walker. Little shout out, anybody who hasn't listened to Murray Walker on the Formula One Beyond the Grid podcast, go check that out. If you're going to listen to one of those 50 or so episodes they've done, I mean, the voice of F1 racing, a guy who's still alive today in his 90s and can speak in coherent sentences. He's an amazing dude. So it's anybody who doesn't know much about him and you want to know more, go listen to that.
The stories he could tell from being on the grid for so many years.
That's what I mean. It's just, I have so much respect for a guy like that, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to doing more of these shows and actually being able to watch full races that he did commentary on, rather than just, snippets on YouTube or even podcasts. It's kind of cool to hear him in his element, really, and not with Martin Brundle, since Martin Brundle was out on the track. And then one thing I wanted to talk about is this race is featured pretty heavily in the Senna documentary, which I'm sure most of us and most people, I would imagine, hopefully listening to this, if you haven't, go check it out. The Senna documentary came out in 2011 or 12, I think it was. Something like that. I remember it when it was in the store and I was in college, so it had to have been at least then. The classic F1 logo at the beginning was very nice, and the sonic touches everywhere. Even right down to the feet on the Williams car.
The side of the Williams car. They kind of tried to do like an X-ray in the cockpit of the car where their feet would be, but instead of normal human feet, it was the Sonic feet, and it said Seg on the side. It was just a really nice touch.
Yeah.
Prost helmet having Sonic on it too.
Yep.
I miss that. You guys said that at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it a little bit when we get to the formation lap stuff, but just the shots of the drivers' faces at the beginning was, I don't know. I loved that. But we'll move on. I don't have a sound effect. I told you I was going to get one, but I don't have it yet. I want to get some kind of little drill sound for you.
Air guns, bro.
So I can swing. There you go. That works. Give me that one more time so it's nice and clean. All right, now we're going over to Phil for the tech specs of the 1993 Formula One season, and this, more specifically, this race.
Well, you just took the words out of my mouth. So for the tech specs for the 93 Donington Grand Prix here, mostly I found out that a lot of the engines were not split up, but different styles of engines, different number of cylinders, I guess you can say.
Really? So it wasn't like a standard, like nowadays in modern Formula One, where everybody has to have
the V6.
Yes.
Right. So the only thing I found standard was the displacement of the engine. They're all using 3.5 liter engines, all of them across the board. Just a difference between V8, V10, or V12.
Now, just to ask, I don't know if you're going to get into this, but turbocharging, is that banned or allowed in this?
I believe that was banned at this point still. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said earlier, off the show, it was for this 90s era, the rules stayed fairly the same and regular throughout the years up until 94, where I'll get into it, but they banned some systems.
So the following year after this, they got, which is
we kind of know with what happened with the Williams car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll start in here. So they call this at this point in the time, the 93 season was the most advanced and most sophisticated height of the electronics.
Okay.
Which
So I'm thinking that the reason that they say the most advanced is because after that they banned a few things and they dialed it back a little bit from some of the electronics.
yes,
Because if not, then you're always going to think that the year at that time would have been the highest in technology. They would have to remove something for it to be higher, and there'd be years later.
Exactly. Yeah. So I found that quite interesting. Just reading that little there. Active suspension. Well, it was actually I was surprised that it was on majority of the cars. Not all the cars, but majority of the cars did have some type of active suspension, whether it be as advanced as Williams or as a basic setup as some of the other teams might have had.
And that's all I was going to say is everybody kind of knows this season to be pretty famous from the Williams active suspension car.
Yeah, that's one of the features that got banned in '94 is the active suspension.
Which makes sense. It put more of the driving in the driver's hands, I would say.
No automatic adjustments throughout the track to keep the car level. That's what it was exactly doing. I guess I can just name off all the engines and manufacturers there.
Yeah, give us a list of the manufacturers with their engines.
So for Williams, they were using a Renault engine, which is a V10. Tyrrell, what was it? How do you pronounce it? Tyrrell. Well, they were using Yamaha engines, also
That's
a V10.
Crazy. YZ said 50, 250. Why is it?
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
3.5 liters.
I don't
so
know
it's
anything.
a lot bigger.
I don't know anything about dirt bikes, so I just wanted to be funny.
Benetton was Benetton and McLaren both using Fords. They were V8s.
I don't know if you got this down, but one thing I do want to add that I do know, a little bit of a factoid. Benetton was essentially a works Ford team.
Oh.
So in all the teams that weren't a works Ford team, like McLaren, what happened is that they got the same Ford engine, but it wasn't as powerful as the teams like Benetton and the others were using.
They actually did make a comment about that in the sense that they were saying the McLaren engine isn't supposed to be as powerful as the Benetton. And I was wondering why, so that does make sense, which is not something, again, you could do, I don't think, in modern Formula One. If you're supplying an engine to another team, it has to be the same engine that you're putting in your own car.
So that's another thing. There's two other teams also. It was Lotus and Minardi also using Ford V8s.
Okay.
So going on here, Jordan, which is Hart engines, they were using V10s. March, which was Emor engines, I believe that's the way you pronounce it.
Wow, some of the
Also
stuff I've
V8.
never heard of.
Yeah, it's pretty standard across for what they're saying. LaRose, is that how I'm saying it well?
LaRousse.
Lamborghini is using V12.
Wow.
Along with Lola Ferrari, also using V12s.
That I knew.
We mentioned the Minardi V8, Ligier?
Like
Ligier.
Ligier, yeah, he's got that
it's
right.
Renault, that's
I've
right.
heard that
It's a Renault engine, V10. And then Ferrari uses V12s, so there's only actually 3 V12s on the track.
Which is the Ferraris?
Ferrari, the Lamborghini, and the other Ferrari, the Lola Ferrari.
Okay, that's, yeah, wow.
And then
so the
Sauber-
Italians are sticking to the 12.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We like the
they like
many, the
sound.
piston.
The sound, the big piston, and Sauber using a V10.
Wow.
So that,
which I do want to add was most likely a Mercedes, because we saw on the start of the race those cars, it did say on the side powered by Mercedes.
Did it say powered by?
It said concept by Mercedes.
I was
but
really starting to think that it was something more along the lines that you see with Red Bull and Aston Martin in the later 2000s now, and how it's more of just a badge and a branding. I could be wrong.
because they did come back to the sport a year or two after this, right?
To jump back in,
Like
I don't.
with McLaren. It was after '95 that they came back.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but I don't think they were with McLaren. I don't know. We'd have to do a research on that one. Either way, it's interesting.
it's funny. I forgot to mention the one Honda team on the grid still.
Honda Tech Phil.
I skipped over that. That's my bad.
So who was that?
The Footwork Mugen Honda. They're using actually a V10 engine, so that was probably one of the different ones they had at the
a
time.
nice mix. And what is can you explain a little bit? Because I'm honestly just curious. Can you get equal power from different types of engines like that, or is there a reason why a team would say we want to stick with V12 and a reason why a team would say we want to have a V8? To me, that seems like quite a bit different of an engine inside your car.
Absolutely, you can have equal power with a bigger engine or a smaller engine, but for a reason being, it would just be manufacturer. They would just have to have their own personal reason why they would want to continue using a V12, whether it be more reliable, whether they found better advancements in it or whatnot. Or
maybe
weight also is
Yeah.
another big factor, right?
I was gonna say maybe even way too expensive to change.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
if it would cost too much to completely redesign your engine from a V12 to a V8, because I would imagine that's a massive redesign.
Yeah, it is a big redesign, yeah.
True. Okay. Interesting. It's cool. I always prefer the eras in Formula One where you get more variation between the cars. Like when
Yeah.
we're watching these cars drive down the track and we can see the aero differences. Like you could paint all these cars white, and if I was watching this every race of this 1993 season, then I would be able to tell you which car is which.
You can
I mean,
differentiate.
right now, maybe not because I've only watched this race and a few other highlights, but some of them, even the McLaren and the Benetton, if you painted them both completely black, I'd tell you which car is which.
Oh, absolutely.
And I like that. That's really cool, in my
ano-
opinion, at least.
Another thing that Will mentioned was the sound too. Every car is just sounding different. So it's not like, modern day right now, what we hear is the same thing passing by. You can close your eyes and you can't tell what car drives by.
Unless it's the Honda sometimes.
Yeah.
But
I
not
guess
even as much now as in earlier
days.
when
yeah.
they first jump back in.
Absolutely. Little rule changes I found were actually interesting that they actually implemented was to cut down the cornering speeds of the vehicles.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah, and I believe this was a little bit later in the season, but just after this race, they ended up changing the wheel track. So the wheel track is from the left to the right wheel from a center point. So they changed it to be shorter, which is going down from 7.1 feet to 6.6 feet. Very small, but it does a difference. And along with that, they changed the rear tire size. Made it a skinnier tire, which gave them less traction, which had forced them pretty much to be slowing down into the corners more. I found that actually interesting and different that they would just implement these two rule changes just to change cornering speed differences.
Yeah, I'm curious to know why they would do that. Like, why? Is it giving them more straight line speed overall?
Maybe not more straight line speed, but I feel like they were maybe getting to a point that they felt unsafe, maybe in some of the turns, or
So more control.
yeah, more
speed.
control
Okay.
through
that
the
makes
higher
sense.
speed turns or whatnot.
Yeah, it wasn't uncommon at this time in Formula One's history that a driver would die at a race.
No, which is, I mean, I don't know how often it was happening in the 90s, but still nowhere near where we are today or where they were going to be post Ayrton Senna's death one year later when they really revamped the side pods and changed the look of the cars a lot.
The cockpit itself, the whole mono cockpit.
Yeah, and how much their head sticks out of the car in this 93 season compared to the beginning of the 95 season.
Exactly. Fun facts? You want to get into some fun facts about Williams? The Williams
Absolutely.
team and how advanced electronically, I guess you could say, or sophisticated their car actually was at the time. So I'm just going to be rambling off here. Feel free to jump in and you ask me.
Tech specs are. I wish I could have like the sounds of a garage like on real low on my sound.
in the back.
Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, just put your phone on record in
at work.
A busy day in the shop.
Put it on a loop and then just we're gonna now we're getting in behind the scenes of the look back here.
So as we spoke before, they had a hydraulically and electronically controlled active suspension. So with that, it was able to continuously maintain the ride height needed for traction around the whole circuit, regardless, without input or anything.
It's incredible, amazing technology that they were able to do that back then. Especially when you look at these cars, they don't, not to say that they look like shit, but they don't look like the cars.
Yeah.
Oh,
They don't look like spaceships. They look like cars.
And you got to remember, some of these things I might be saying now, us being in 2020, you're going to be like, whoa, this is standard for cars. Absolutely, it's standard for cars because it's safety features for cars. Back then,
exactly.
it was enhancements for the driver.
This is how we got to the point for it to be safety standard features for road cars because it was introduced in Formula One.
So with that being said, power steering and anti-lock brakes.
Wow.
Simple as that. Having a simple power steering system and anti-lock brakes made their car that much more different.
Question before you move on.
Yep.
In 1993, were anti-lock brakes and power steering standard on a road car?
Some were.
Like a high end?
There was hydraulically power steering controlled also, but it was still a feature. There were still cars out there with manual racks that were no power assist.
That's what I thought. Wow. Okay, so we really are seeing the
ABS
My-
was
my,
just starting to get in too.
My car, the 87 Cavalier, does have power steering.
Okay, so it just depended on what you were getting.
Absolutely.
And at the time, that was a nice ride.
Yeah.
I still love it, but
Cavalier. I can't chirp it. I learned manual on it. My sister's Cavalier.
there you go.
Fly-by-wire controls. So with that being said, it's instant, as we do nowadays, controlling it all off the steering wheel. That's what they were able to do too. right off their steering wheel. Rather, when they needed it, they could change stuff or be adjusted.
That's what the brake bias? Sorry.
It didn't get into too much what it would actually control, but I'm assuming
that's
all
just
these
what you
electronic
mean.
features that they had was able to be controlled on the spot.
That's
demand.
what you mean when you say fly-by-wire. You mean controlled remotely.
Yeah, exactly.
Got you. Okay,
Like
sorry.
setting launch controls or your brake bias on the fly. And stuff
While
like
on
that.
the track.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Insane to think about. This is a long time ago. I mean, we never said it. I mean, this race, me and Phil were 1 and 2 respectively,
Yeah,
or
2 years
1
old.
for Phil and 2 for me, or Jesus fuck.
2 for me, 1 for you.
Yeah, I can't. I told you earlier I couldn't do math.
I wasn't even born yet.
And that's what I was gonna say. Will was, still rolling around inside his pops.
We're keeping this family G, all right?
No, it's explicit content at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Somewhere, which is anyway. We're not getting into anything that bad.
Moving on here, traction control.
Ooh, standard.
Yep, it was standard for their Williams car, which I was surprised.
So is that, when you say for the Williams car, is that not universal across the whole grid?
No.
This was based on
This
who had their own technology? Like
all these little features I'm saying was all on Williams' car.
only. Oh, so that's why
They
there's so much
innovated.
controversy
They were
around this
big,
car.
big.
That's
yeah.
why our boy Ayrton wanted to go to that team so bad, even though he dominated this race, as we'll get to.
But you can see that it was the weather. But yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, it's simple as that. Traction control. They also had a semi-automatic gearbox that we've talked about before, but could be switched over to a fully automatic gearbox.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like at a press of a button.
I believe so. It was at some point that they would be able to switch it to a fully automatic. But I'm not sure why. Maybe for a high-speed, straight line, extra power
let's
output.
hope not. They were not. Let's hope they weren't using that in a race.
They had the
all right, it's qualifying. Throw it on automatic.
Yeah, I mean, they might. They 100% might.
Fuck.
You can never doubt a team.
I got the times here.
You didn't really have the in-cockpit cameras either to see whether he's...
And if it was like outside the cockpit.
Exactly, yeah.
The camera was, I think, to the right side, at least on the McLaren of the airbox.
Yeah, you
above
couldn't
the head.
see much of what the driver was doing with his hands.
They had...
Sorry, Phil.
Apparently sorry, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. I said jump in when needed. Apparently they had a more advanced onboard telemetry system than the other teams.
Oh, wow.
Which was
Probably
apparently
more,
blowing them out of the water.
It was probably, if I had to guess, it was incremental. Like they were probably being able to see how close
more values
his times were throughout the lap rather than maybe just 3 times or twice or even once. I don't know what the other teams had.
Absolutely. Pneumatic valve springs in the engine.
I don't know what that means.
So that's why I'm here. So pneumatic means it's operated by compressed air. Okay, to break it down for you, they're actually using metal bellows instead of a steel spring wounded like a coil to completely close the valves at high speed operation.
Wow.
So when your engine's revving at, like we spoke about, 18,000 RPM, you have a potential for something to happen called valve float, which means your camshaft is rolling over the rocker arm, pushing the valve open so fast that it doesn't have time to completely close by the time that camshaft rolls back over.
Oh.
So it's literally as if the valve is floating open in the cylinder. So with this pneumatic valve springs, they were forcing it closed faster and making sure that it is closed, so when there is a compression and a power output, it is being actually provided in the right general direction, not back out in the intake.
And not, it's staying closed.
Yeah, keep it
basically
closed. There's R2 going off over there.
Yeah, my phone. I got to put it on quiet.
They had a push-to-pass system.
Ooh.
In theory, to make overtaking easier. I did not see that happen once in this race, but
No.
we'll keep that
nor
off.
did the commentary ever mention that. at all.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought push-to-pass was like an
wonder-
indie thing that we've talked about.
Same.
I wonder how much of this stuff is stuff we figured out like years after they've stopped using their cars and they just told, oh yeah, we had this system on the
We
car.
had
and
this.
just never told anyone about it.
Very, very possible, right? I mean, it's
Interesting.
not like we were there at the times and we were looking at these cars, because I would have had
You
all
don't
these
have
notes.
Vettel
different.
stupid in the cockpit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid. Check measuring the wings. And then another little fun. This was just something else I noticed. This has nothing to do with their actual car at the time, but they were actually testing a continuous variable transmission.
CVT.
Bingo!
wow.
What did we talk about not too long ago in our cars about Hondas and their newer fuel efficiency and everything? CVT transmissions. So it's crazy to hear that back in '93 that a team was already starting to do research and trying to understand these concepts. And now, modern day, we're using it in pretty much standard
Basic
vehicles.
cars. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I found.
That's really cool. I'm sure that's super cool for you, someone being a mechanic that works on this stuff.
Yeah, when I read that.
Seeing that guys were developing this technology when we were 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never thought of it. Like, the first time I hearing about CVT is when my parents bought their brand new Versa from Nissan. And my dad's like, oh, yeah, it's a CVT. It doesn't shift gears. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't shift gears? I didn't understand back then. I was only like 16, 17, just getting into this.
I barely understand now, but I mean, you know, your shit, so.
Another little fun fact from a side team, the Benetton Ford actually later in the season were testing a 4-wheel steer system.
Ooh.
I heard about this.
Yeah. I didn't find too much info about it, but 4-wheel steer would just mean the rear tires were also steering in a counter opposite direction of the front tires to give a better turning radius.
Crazy.
That's
nuts. It's like a
91 Prelude, baby, right there.
Oh,
4-wheel steer.
Are you serious?
Or 89 or 91.
I was going to say, it sounds like
92 Skyline R32.
There's another one, too.
How about the Warthog from Halo?
OG, baby, OG. But
driving like Senna or Schumacher driving the Warthog out there. That's good stuff, man.
But yeah, so like I mentioned, with all these features that Williams found and everything, all of them ended up getting banned by the 94 year, except the onboard telematics and the pneumatic
telemetrics.
valves.
I think it's telemetrics.
Telemetry, whatever you want to say.
Telemetry, there you go. Just get the commentator over there
right.
to say it.
ARC, we'll plug that later. But yeah, so the onboard telemetry.
There you go. You got it perfect.
And the pneumatic valve springs, which completely I understand, because at this point now with these engines, they needed the proper reliability for the engines. Mm-hmm. So they made that standard across every team there.
Very nice. Can I get the... There we go.
Hand off the segment.
And that was
Phil's tech specs.
Tech specs from Phill. That's fun, man. I'm curious to, like I said before, to learn more and more as we go forward and do more lookbacks.
Yeah.
Send you to do some research and come back and teach me and Will about some stuff. It's nice.
I just hope my research will be sufficient enough.
Oh, so far so good, man. I think you're doing pretty darn well.
I'm learning.
I'm waiting for a Twitter message from that one random person out there somewhere.
You forgot to mention that these cars also had launch control off the start of the grid.
I was thinking that a deeper voice of somebody, you didn't watch that race in 93.
What do you mean you don't know anything?
You weren't even born then.
Yeah, exactly, right? I was expecting that kind of stuff. But
my
anyway.
My dad watched it, okay?
I think my dad told me he watched it. He told me, and it was his birthday, so I'm going to ask him, did you watch it on your birthday? But yeah. That's good stuff. You know, the track stats from me, the tech specs from Will, and it's from Phill, and it's time.
See, time. You as you. I told it was going to happen at some point. Oh, yeah. You're going to mix this up.
It's happened before, and it'll probably happen again. But it's time for Will and his qualifying lineup.
All right. Well, starting on pole positions for the Williams Renault, we have Alain Prost.
Can I break in for 1 second?
Go ahead.
I may actually have like a small sound effect that I might be able to use.
All right, go for it. Oh, yeah, you got to turn it up first. There you go.
No, my goodness! He takes pole position. Incredible.
That actually does work.
There you go. Now it's time for the qualifying with Will.
All right. So as I mentioned, Alain Prost on pole with a time of a 1:10.458.
Wow.
And then in second, we have his teammate Damon Hill in the with a 1:10.7. So that's first and second. And then in third place, Michael Schumacher.
Oh, legend. You know what I just realized? Is that I told you guys that the time of the race was 1:10.4. I'm believing, obviously, now in my research that wasn't the time of the race. That was the time of the qualifying lap. Because I was thinking the race was an hour and 10 minutes. But obviously not. So continue. I just wanted to correct my fucking up.
All right. As I mentioned, Michael Schumacher in third place in the Benetton Ford. But the gap, I actually want to point out, he had a 1:12.008. So between first and third, it's 1.5 seconds. That's pretty big.
Let me guess, qualifying was a dry day too.
Most likely, yeah, with the times in the 110s. But
so now let's take this into consideration. With the fastest lap that Ayrton put was a 1:20
in the race. Full of fuel,
and he was flying, right? But Williams was running a 1:10 in a qualifying lap.
Yeah, but the difference being
they still turn up the cars for qualifying as well.
There's no Parc Fermé back then.
Very
so
true.
that car in qualifying is set up to qualify.
Yeah,
not
that's true.
set up to be set up in a race trim.
No, true.
They
As
crank that
dampers,
engine.
everything. I don't know the setups, but all the suspension and everything that needs to be set up for the car. Back then, they could switch it. So it was basically, you almost were driving like two different cars. Like the car you drove in qualifying was not feeling like the same car that you were going to drive in the race.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that wasn't a factor.
And I'm looking at this. It looks like they only had 2 qualifying sessions based on the current.
I think
thing
back
at the
then
time.
too they did something. Dan, don't quote me if I'm wrong, or but I think it was like an hour, and you could go out and you had an hour to do as much as you wanted. And it's the reason that it ended up changing is that I think a lot of people would just end up waiting till the end, and you'd get nothing for the first half an hour of the session, so you were left watching an empty track. But anyway, sorry to keep cutting you off.
All right. Well, in 4th place, we have the Ayrton Senna with the McLaren Ford.
That's still weird to hear that.
It is still weird. He has a 112.107. 5th place, Carl Wendlinger, excuse me if I mispronounced that name, in the Sauber. So a good result for the Sauber. I think they're a new team to Formula One, or maybe they joined in 92, but that's still fairly like a new team to the grid. So props for them to getting that 5th place position.
And in my opinion, potentially the best looking car
Oh, yeah.
on the grid. That jet black with the
Clean.
liquid moly and the Mercedes logo just was doing it for me. It's something
Oh,
I
it
would have
was-
made in GT.
It was clean. In 6th place, we have Michael Andretti, also in the McLaren, the only American on the grid. In 7th place, we have JJ Leto, also in the Sauber. 8th place, Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, and his teammate Jean Alesi behind him in 9th. In 10th place, Riccardo Patrese in the Benetton Ford in 10th, and Johnny Herbert in 11th with the Lotus Ford. 12th place, Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan Hart. In 13th, Alessandro Zanardi in the Lotus Ford. Derek Warwick in the Footwork Mugen Honda in 14th.
Woo!
Felipe Alino, I'm assuming that's how his name is pronounced, in the LaRousse Lamborghini in 15th. Christian Fittipaldi in the Minardi Ford in 16th. Eric Comas in the LaRousse Lamborghini in 17th. Ukyo Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha in 18th.
I know that name. I don't know why, but I know that name. Continue.
Thierry Boutsen in 19th in the Jordan Hart. Fabrizio Barbaza starts in 20th. That'll become important later on.
Yeah.
In the Minardi Ford. So he's a Minardi. So Minardi started actually pretty early here. I didn't know they started in the early 90s.
Back then, yeah. Same here.
In 21st, we have Marc Blundell in the Ligier Renault. 22nd, Martin Brundle in the Ligier Renault. 23rd, Aguri Suzuki in the Footwork Mugen Honda. 24th, Michele Alboreto in the Lola Ferrari. 25th, Andrea De Cesaris in the Tyrrell Yamaha. And in 26th, Luca Bador in the Lola Ferrari. However, I believe, I just want to make sure I get this correct. Yes, it is Luca Bador that does not start the race.
Wow, 26 people. That's crazy that they had 26 cars on the grid back then.
Yeah.
I know it's only 6 more, but that makes a big difference. Like,
Oh, yeah.
6 extra guys there is quite a bit different. But no, it's interesting, those names, man. They're all names anyone who's watched a decent amount of Formula One or even listened to shows or watched old stuff, and they're all just names that are synonymous. It's names that are, I don't know how you want to word it, but they're recognizable F1 names. Most of the names you just gave. Even if some of those guys like Mark Blundell and stuff moved over to IndyCar later, and I remember watching him in 99, 2000.
Zanardi,
same thing. Andretti, same thing. A lot of these guys went over to IndyCar. Didn't Gerhard Berger too? I could be wrong on that one.
I think Berger went to kart.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too, is the CART kart kind of champ car, whatever it was, back in the 2000s. But yeah, that's good little list. We'll get that again at the end, the finishing list.
Yeah.
much less people we'll talk about. But I figured we might as well talk about anything else we want to get to before this race kind of starts off, and just maybe some of the formation lap stuff and the stuff they were showing us at the beginning.
All right. Well, I have a few things here. As we mentioned, the Sega sponsored race earlier on. It's it's all over the place. I gotta admit, it's so classic and old school, early 90s.
Oh,
just
they got
Sonic everywhere.
Dude, they got the plug from us at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool to see that. I also have to admit, looking at the track at the start, I get this is kind of like in the middle of the UK or something like that, but having the runoff is mostly grass. There was a few gravel traps here and there, but mostly grass. You don't have the actual tarmac runoff.
No, and even like you just said, even if there was a runoff, it was gravel. You're not like you're beached, like we'll talk about Andretti on the first lap.
Yeah.
It's no very unforgiving type of track, but very traditional. I was gonna ask you guys this, and I'm happy I remembered now. Is have either one of you ever raced this in a sim racing game?
No.
I haven't, no.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Maybe in Project Cars 2, and I'd have to go back and look at it and tell you whether or not I did or I didn't, but I'd like to, for sure, because like you said, it's not overly complicated. It's relatively simple parts of the track, just low speed, high speed, nice mix, but I don't know. I'd be interested to try it in the old sim racing rig.
Yeah, it would
Since
be
that's
fun.
something we all kind of do here.
All right, we ready to jump right on into things, or you got something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add a few things. I wanted to talk a little bit of the fact we saw Princess Diana. I thought that was really cool, her being on the track, and I don't know, not something, I mean, I guess at the time it wouldn't have been, well, no, it would have been a big deal, but you wouldn't have thought about the significance that we now think about it today with her passing, obviously, in 97, right? The classic F1 logo, too. I wanted to talk about that, bro. Like that was before they switched to the logo that we had for so long that they just changed in 2018. Was that one there with the two, I don't know, looked like a car basically.
Yeah.
In between the FIA.
Yeah. And they really had more, the FIA was a part of it rather than, I guess, now it is. It's
sponsor, like, it looks like.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Whereas then it was like integrated into the logo. Now it's just like the governing body that kind of, it was then too, but now it's treated, I feel like, more like that.
Yeah.
They still put the name in front of the Grand Prix, but it's not as much completely a part of it. Yeah, and then the only other thing I wanted to talk about is just that we got no commentary until like lights out.
Yeah,
pretty much
until they're on the grid, lights are coming on.
It was just shots of the drivers' faces, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I just thought that was amazing.
Helicopter shot.
The helicopter shot from above, which we didn't get any graphics until we saw the in-review, and then we did get some of the graphics and stuff, which they were, I mean, you can't chirp them. It's 93. Yeah. They were doing what they could for graphics and money, and if you're going to spend more money, spend it on the other stuff. You know what I mean? We don't need the good graphics at the beginning of the show, at least in this one. But yeah, other than this maybe being potentially the best first lap in Formula One history, let's get into it, Will.
All right. Well, I do have to mention, you did mention the graphics and that there was mostly a lack of them. So, again, I'm just going to say that I'm going to get everything in order that I saw it happen.
Yeah.
So
actually, one thing, too. I just wanted to note, it is Damon Hill. It's only his third race of his career. He's a rookie at this time, and he's starting pretty high on the grid.
Yeah, he is. So, again, I have everything here. Not everything, the specific lap that a lot of things happen on. It's just the circumstances we're going by.
Oh, yeah. We're just going to basically run through. You're going to be steering the ship, and me and Phil, I almost called you Will, are going to be jumping in the back.
Well, the first thing we saw when we started was actually one of the Saubers being pushed off the grid, and I believe it was the car of J.J. Leto getting into a T-car.
And we tried to figure out what team it was, I think, for 5 minutes. The three of us.
It was just the
tough.
all-black car. We just saw Mercedes on the side and couldn't figure it out until we realized, oh, yeah, it's a Sauber.
And then, I don't know if it was me or who, but the T-car, kind of that whole concept not being...
That's not a thing anymore.
No, I don't think nowadays, well, I know nowadays you cannot afford to build 4 of those Formula One cars that we see in 2020. In 93 is a little bit different. I'm sure the cars weren't as expensive. Technology, electronics, sensors. I don't know how much... That'd be a fun stat to know. How much just the sensors on a modern Formula One car cost. Just the sensors.
With that being said, I would assume it depends on the team because one team might not have as many sensors as the other.
I guarantee you that
more mechanical rather than electronic.
Williams probably doesn't have as many sensors as Mercedes and Ferrari. That's a good point. But yeah, continue on, Will. Sorry, but that's a really good point.
Right.
I never thought of that.
We're getting ready to start the race. It is a wet race. I went starting on the wet tires, other than J.J. Leto in the pit starting on the slicks. But the first lap comes around. First lap starts, and Senna from 5th to 1st in 1 lap.
Godly. That's all. I think I wrote Senna as a god 4 times, five times throughout on my paper as I was writing notes and jotting down stuff about this race.
I think it was like the first turn he went from 5th to 3rd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first turn, 5th to 3rd.
And then was it the one? Is that the same one where he comes around the outside and he looks like he's going to go right off the track and somehow he's just stuck to the ground like he's on rails?
Yep.
It doesn't even make sense.
I wrote here easy for Senna. That's it.
Yeah. I wrote Senna is God on my paper. is one of those races. I'm sure both of you guys have seen highlights of it in the past. You've heard it talked about because of, like we mentioned earlier in the Senna documentary. It was very cool to watch it in full time, in no pausing, no outside commentary. You had the commentary of the day. You know what I mean? It was raw.
I have to admit, before today, I've never seen a full race with Ayrton Senna in it. I've only ever seen the clips of him doing laps at Monaco, at Brazil.
Yep.
This is the first time I've ever seen him actually do a full, complete Grand Prix, and I have to admit, I'm impressed. I understand why some people say he's one of the best of all time.
Why he is what he is.
100%. But also, speaking of lap 1, we have, I believe it was Andretti and Wendlinger off, and I'm not sure what turn it was. We didn't get that, but they're both off and both out of the Grand Prix.
That was the other Liquid Moly car, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
That was the other Sauber.
So it was a rough day for Sauber. Just a rough start for Sauber.
Oh, yeah.
Off the bat. And that's another one, Michael Andretti. It's crazy to think that he was Ayrton Senna's teammate, eh?
Yeah.
When you think about him and who he represents in IndyCar, being such a legend of IndyCar, and how the Formula One thing really just didn't
It did not
go in his favor. No, but I don't know if it was fully... I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I think he would have been a long, prosperous Formula One driver, but I think maybe he didn't get the best shot. I don't know.
I do believe at one point in the Grand Prix, or at least in the highlights we watched later, he said he only completed like 3 laps in 3 races.
Something like that. Because, we said this is, I don't know if we even mentioned the third race of the 1993
Oh,
season.
that was my job.
No, I had it too. It's okay. So I forgot to.
All right. So I do want to point out, I guess after this, around the second lap,
Senna's pulling the fuck away.
Oh, yeah, he's gapped out huge. He's already got like a 5 second or something like that lead.
The fact that he was crossing the finish line for the first time in first place is insane.
And then we have Rubens Barrichello in 4th place in his Jordan.
Yes. And I'm assuming this was his first season because they were talking about, we've got another Brazilian in Formula One now.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure people were anticipating with him being this good, clearly, up into 4th. Is this not the next Senna? But, could he be as like Senna? He's Brazilian, you know what I mean? You don't know.
And he would go on to have some success in the future, especially with Ferrari. And then I have the next thing here at lap 7 because I believe there was a commercial break that they cut from the broadcast. There was. And so we have Martin Brundle along with Katayama go onto the soft tires around lap 7.
Yep.
So they're going to the slick tires. And then the same lap, if not a little bit later, we have Martin Brundle spinning out of the race.
Yeah, on lap 8, I believe.
Around next, we have more pit stops for dry tires here. We have Jean Alesi in the Ferrari on the slicks. And then Damon Hill making his first pit stop onto the softs as well. And then we have I have Senna making his pit stop onto the slicks. And I have the time for this one. That was an 8.3 second stop, I believe.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit, Phil? I'm curious to get your opinion. We if you want to do it later in the show, we can too. Just the difference of pit stops, because I know you analyze pit stops kind of in a different sort of way than at least myself. I don't know about Will.
It's pretty much just simplified a lot more
back then. But
yeah.
more people. I feel like it's more chaotic.
It's crazy when we had those preseason shots of seeing all the bodies in the pit lane, not just necessarily actually where the car stops, but I mean along the pit wall and everything.
The whole time,
it looked like it was just a concert going on.
Oh yeah, we see that now when we go to our local racetrack at Mossburg. You see all those people in the pit,
but not during the race.
Yeah, not during the race. Yeah, but when they bring the cars out for the parade and stuff, you see that. But
yeah, and people are crossing back and forth between the wall, the engineer wall, and the pit booth, or not the pit booth, the garage and stuff. And it's what the fuck are people doing?
It's the freedom that you had, I guess, in the pits back then.
It must have not been no safety concern.
No.
Oh, no.
Well, no, and even it happens way later, but Damon Hill, when he made a comment after the race about how he skid going into the pits, and he's making a comment about how his engineers were good little soldiers and they didn't move.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, that is kind of scary.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a Formula One car skidding at you. He's not in control of that car anymore. And you're trusting him enough that he knows what he's doing, that you're not going to move, and that tire is going to pull up in front of your gun or, close enough.
You have to adjust a little bit.
Therefore, anyway.
All right.
So the vortex is on the back of the car. I wanted to mention too, because this is when I brought it up to you guys when we were watching it.
Yeah.
And just super cool. You see
humidity.
100%.
You see it a little bit now, maybe the odd time, but back then I don't know if it was the size of the wing and just the humidity too.
Yeah,
but
it has to be weather conditions
that has
in a big play. But then you still see it on some hot days. I think we saw him at Mexico. I remember seeing that in Mexico.
and Suzuka. I know I seen them coming around 130R at Suzuka for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue, Will. Sorry, I just wanted to get my little.
All right.
I think we had another commercial at this point too.
And then we have the last thing I have here is we have Prost. After Senna makes his pit stop, Prost will lead the race around lap 19.
Yes, and then Barrichello was in second, Senna was in third, and Damon Hill was in fourth at that point.
Mm-hmm. Then I have
7.3 second pit stop.
7.3 seconds per Prost. Yep, that's his first of what ends up being many pit stops.
Yes.
For a set of slicks, we have.
And he lost the lead there, just to be said,
Yes,
too,
yes,
because
yes.
he was leading. He went into the pits 7.3. Senna came out, or Barrichello might have been in the lead at that point. I'm not sure.
And then we have one of the Ferraris that we didn't get a name for who it was, but we saw one of the Ferraris. I believe it was in the pit lane.
Okay. Well, who was it? It was Zanardi, and who was the other one?
Alesi?
It was Alesi and Berger, I think.
Oh,
it
yeah,
was,
not
but-
Zanardi. My bad. Jesus.
But they didn't say who it was, so. And then in lap 20, we have the finishing order, or the line order here at lap 20. I have Senna, Prost, Hill, Alesi. So it must have been Berger then.
Okay.
Barrichello, Schumacher, then Johnny Herbert in 7th.
Wow. Well, can you come a little bit closer to the mic?
Sure. All right, then we have, I have the little thing here, a little star. We have Senna passing Blundell and Fittipaldi, because those two were fighting for a position, and which causes Blundell to go wide off of one of the corners. I think it was like a chicane.
Yeah.
Into the gravel trap, spins, and he's out of the
And
race.
he's basically stuck, because if you get on that gravel, especially in these cars, like I feel like, well, no, not nowadays, you'd be fine too, or you'd be screwed too, but especially in these cars because of the different suspension, you're screwed. Like we saw it with Andretti at the beginning and him just digging his tires into the ground.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have Prost making another pit stop here, back onto the wets, and that was a 6.6 second stop.
Yes, pits for wets, and Schumacher came in, or no, Schumacher was beached right following that.
Yeah, he beached his car, so no Rainmeister here for the rest of this race.
No, and is that a thing too, that he's the Rainmeister? Because I never really knew that. I knew Senna to be that way, I knew Lewis to be that way, and even a few other guys. Verstappen, yeah, in some time, especially Spain 2016, shout out. Or no, Brazil 2016. But yeah, was that something that Schumacher was known for for a long time as well?
I'm pretty sure it was him that he was known as the Rainmaster or the Rainmeister or something like that. I'm pretty sure that was his nickname.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me. I just didn't know it. That's all. Quickly before it, because this is something I had written down as well. I wish we had more opportunities, more time for this kind of stuff in modern Formula One. The commentary just taking a seat back, taking a break, and just I don't know if taking a break, but just taking a step back and letting you listen to these cars. No graphics on the screen, no stats about who's in what place or anything of that nature. No interviews. Just the sound of the V12 engines, the sound of the the V10s, the V8s that Phil talked about, and the sounds of these cars ripping through Donington Park. I just thought I wish we had more of that, because that's something that can go underappreciated, I guess.
Oh yeah, especially when you have all the different manufacturers and different cylinder types and stuff you have going on. It's super unique to hear all the cars flying by the cameras. After this, we have Damon Hill making another pit stop following Prost onto the wets. So that's your second stop for both those cars, I'm pretty sure here.
At that, I think that was it. I don't know. We know Damon had a plentiful amount of stops in this race.
And then the next one I have Patrese onto the wets. And
Was this? Oh, actually, one sec. Was this just post Michael Schumacher's?
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to, because this is when I noticed it, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit now and probably a little bit later. But how insane was that pit entrance at this track?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
How you make like a sharp left and then you downhill and then another left, and now you're facing 180 from the direction that you were when you entered the pits, and you basically skip not a hairpin, but the final turn of the race. You skip that, and then you come out on the start-finish line. If anybody doesn't follow me along, go look at a layout of the circuit, and you'll understand it's very different. And you don't see the elevation change on the layout of the circuit. The elevation is quite different too.
Yeah.
And then I have a little note here after Patrese made his pit stop that I have that, because this is when they were switching back to the wet tires because it started raining again, and Senna was still out there on his slicks.
Yep.
And he was matching, if not faster than him, on the slicks when it was raining. And that's impressive.
That is.
Yeah, that's yeah. That's why we're here.
He would be called the Rainmeister of this race.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
And then we have another graphic for lap 25. Senna leads, followed by Alesi, Barrichello in third, Prost fourth, Hill fifth, and Herbert in 6th.
And where are we now? 31, 34, somewhere in that range?
I think this just hit 25 here.
Oh, geez, my bad.
So this is just 25. Then I noticed here there was a little bit of a battle between Prost and Barrichello for position. Barrichello loses out, goes back position, then makes a pit stop for slicks.
So many freaking pit stops in this. And the one thing, Murray Walker, like I talked about him being such a legend and such, commentary gold. He did such a good job in this race, but that's the one thing is I wish they did a better job of keeping track of the numbers.
Yeah.
Like I wish we really got, this is so-and-so's 6th pit stop of the day or whatever. That would have been nice. Just so we could follow along.
I think that's kind of a thing of the times. Like in modern days, you'd have it like it'd be next to their name that says how many stops they've done. But
we're more used to that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as much of a staple back then. That's probably a good point.
All right, and then after Barrichello makes his pit stop, and we have Senna jumping back onto the wet tires. I was a 6.4 second stop. Then we have a Lacey back into the pits for a wets, and I was a 14-second stop for a lazy, I believe it was.
Which what was the mistake there?
I believe it was, and I'm going to jump to Phill on this one. I think that was the wheel nut was cross-threaded, right?
No, that was Senna's wheel nut.
Was it Senna's?
That was Senna's wheel nut cross-threaded. That's what I'm trying to think what a lazy's was. Was it
Senna's? Really?
That was the Senna's one later.
Senna never had a fucking bad.
Did he
Or
not?
I don't remember Senna having like a poor pit stop, like a pit stop where he had fucked up.
Did we mess up here?
Maybe.
No,
maybe
I do. We do have one. He does have one later. I have my notes here. Yeah. So this must have been a different issue for a Lacey then.
Okay, because I have on lap 34 that Prost comes in with the lead, had a 15-second pit stop, and he lost the lead. But that was when he stalled the car, not with the cross thread.
But we're jumping ahead a bit there, so we're just gonna. I have it here just after that. So Lacey does have a bad pit stop. He loses a lot of time. Not sure what it was. I think it was an issue getting the wheel on or off or something with the jacks.
Okay.
Then we have a graphic. We're jumping to lap 31 here. So we have Senna leading, followed by Prost, Hill in 3rd, Barrichello in 4th. I believe I'm trying to make sure I read my own handwriting here. I believe that's Lacey in 4th and Herbert in 6th. I'm making sure.
That sounds about right.
And then I have lap 33 here. We have Prost back into the pits on slicks.
What I had just mentioned, yep.
Then we have Senna. This is when he makes his pit stop back onto the slicks, and he has a 19.4 second pit stop.
Okay,
and that's what I have here.
So he did
cross-threaded wheel loses the 15-second lead he had in front of
my bad.
Prost. Yes,
my bad.
A Lacey, I think he had a jack problem. Something wasn't releasing, or they couldn't get the wheel on or something.
Okay, okay, that's why I was getting confused. My bad. I don't know why I thought it was. I think I was getting confused between Prost's stall and the wheel nut there.
Yeah.
And then it's just I have a bunch of pit stops. We have Hill back.
So yeah, slow down.
Okay.
We want to talk about this.
Okay.
Senna
All right.
pit stop. We want to talk about the Prost pit stop. Let's get to some of this stuff. First of all, where do we want to go? Prost. I want to talk about this. This was a huge moment of the race for me here.
Which pit stop is this?
The 15-second Prost losing his
Lacey.
lead.
And okay, that's Senna losing having the 15-second pit stop.
Prost didn't have his yet. That comes a bit later.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
continue. You
Senna
guys,
first.
I'm going to shut up. You guys keep going.
Senna first?
Yeah, let's talk about Senna. Let's talk about what happened in the stop.
Yeah, so later they came onto the radio and explained that I guess the guy in the garage there mentioned that the mechanics had a cross-threaded nut and they had to remove it to put it back on correctly, which in my case is once you kind of remove a cross-threaded nut, you're not getting it back on without tapping it. We'll just keep that off to the side though. But cross-threading means so when you're threading anything on, whether it be a water cap bottle or whatever, if it's not perfectly in line with the two grooves and you start tightening, after maybe one turn or maybe even half a turn, you will feel that it creates tension and it will feel like it is tight, but it is not tight.
I'm trying to do this with my water bottle.
It might be tough with a water bottle, but
yeah, it is. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. So
I didn't know it was that simple.
It's simple, very simple, but it could create a lot of damage because it's not necessarily holding with the right amount of force and the right amount of torque. So if they left it on thinking that it was tight and he drove down, he probably maybe would have made it out of the pit. And as soon as he had any lateral movement on that tire, it would have just popped off and would have been game over.
End of your race at that point.
GG.
And yeah, you guys were completely right. I just got mixed up with my notes and Senna pit stop. I had Prost leads now, not Prost pit.
I just couldn't find my note.
It's okay. My bad.
But now they have systems in place to prevent cross-threading, right?
Yep.
What is it that they use? Those teeth we talked about at the one time?
Yeah, it's just, it pretty much is, there's only one way the nut can go on. Because there's like a lock nut on it. But
stopping it.
What I've also explained is if you try and pull the gun away too early, the nut will stay on the axle and then you can't get the wheel off. You have to literally impact it all the way off past this locking tab.
I'll be curious to hear more about that in our future 2016 and upwards.
Yeah.
Look backs.
We will.
All right. As I mentioned earlier, we just have a bunch of different pit stops here because the weather keeps changing sporadically, like we mentioned earlier. I have Hill making a pit stop on the slicks, Lacey back onto the wets, Prost onto the wets, and Hill back onto the wets. Just pit stops all over the place.
I wanted to make a note here. This was after Prost got the lead from Senna's 15-second pit stop. Senna gained 0.07 of a second over the course of one lap. I thought that was pretty big, especially for
Tenths or hundreds?
0.7, my bad.
Tenths,
Yeah. 700. Yeah, my bad. I don't know, just crazy. I wrote it on my paper again. Senna godly, just godly speed in this day.
The chassis and I guess the engine were just working super well for him that day. Everything he was going great his way. And then my next page here, my first thing, I have Senna getting mad at a back marker for not getting out of the way.
Give him the old hand wave, throwing his hand up into the air.
Like 3 times. He did it the once. We both looked at each other, me and Will, and then he did it again, and all 3 of us were like, he just fucking did that, didn't he?
Like it's not what they have nowadays where you just see the hand. It's like the full arm out of the car.
Full arm, elbow up past your helmet. Now it's like you barely lift your hand. You're like,
yeah, because you're so stuck into the car. And this is when we have Prost making the pit stop for slicks, and he stalls the engine.
Coming out, and then there's the mechanic fumbling around with something in his pocket trying to get the back of the car started.
Yeah, well, I don't know what he was fumbling around with, but from what we heard, is so he stalled the engine, and when he tried to fire it back up because it was stuck in gear, I believe the mechanic probably reached into the lever to pop it back into a neutral position because of whatever reasons. Maybe the Williams had it electronically controlled, and then they had a mechanical failsafe or something.
So is it, again, I like getting the tech specs from you, man. What's the difference between that and a regular car where you can just put your foot on the clutch and turn the car back on? You don't have the ability to turn the key. Is that what basically the difference is? There's no key in the
unless they have a push start, right?
Exactly.
You got to think about that. It's more, you can't look at it as simply as just pushing a clutch in and turning a key. There has to be certain values to be matched. Like there has to be fuel pressure, oil pressure. It probably can't be in a gear because if you don't have your foot on the clutch, your car won't start nowadays. Back in the day, you could have it in gear and have your foot off the clutch and the car would start.
Oh, that's something else.
So that was a clutch switch was implemented as a safety concern later down the years.
Got you. Okay. No, I was always been curious in racing, not just this race, not just in any racing, not even Formula One, like when they stall the car and they're screwed and they can't just turn the thing back on, they need to get somebody. I never understood how that works, but I guess it's somebody sticking something in the back of the car and winding the engine and turning the engine over rather than you turning it over with a key or a button.
But so if we kind of think about it here, Williams, I believe, like I said, we were using a semi-automatic transmission, so that was now, were they using paddle shifters or was it a Tiptronic shifter?
I don't know.
I'm not sure yet.
I'm not quite sure.
Not even sure if it was H pattern, but we know that Senna's McLaren was an H pattern at the time.
The 93, yeah.
So for him, it would be almost easier for him to, if a car stalls, foot back on the clutch, get the engine started, whether it be if he has a push button start himself or someone has to start it.
Okay.
Whether if the Williams has a Shiftronic or a semi-automatic transmission, and he just lost all power, he doesn't have that electronic input to switch it back to neutral.
He can't put it. I see what you're saying.
As for our modern F1 cars nowadays, they do have that potential because it's still electronically controlled.
I think what a lot of the issues, because we saw when a lot of cars spinning out, and if they spin out, the car stalls and they're out of the race. I think it's because the cars, they all have that machine they stick in the back of the cars that manually cranks the engine over to start it.
Yeah, and
so
then
if
you
they stall
hear
it, they don't have that machine, so they can't get back in the race. And I think that's what happened there, because I did see that machine there behind Prost in the pit stop.
Yeah, so he probably, the first mechanic that was reaching, it was probably reaching into some kind of switch or either mechanical lever to put it into a neutral position. Or open a port for the starter engine to be inputted and fired up.
Interesting stuff. Some of my favorite parts, I think, about this show is learning.
And then because of that pit stop, the disastrous pit stop, I have Senna lapping Prost.
Before he even came out of the pits.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Because he was in there for, 30, 40 seconds?
Oh, it was
something like that. He said it in the post-press conference.
Yeah, he said he lost like 30, 40 seconds, if not more.
Maybe more. I don't know.
I don't know. I am the doctor. This is not my problem. It's the car's problem. So Never blame myself.
Senna laps
That's
Prost.
Russian Prost.
So Senna laps Prost. Senna in the lead. and he currently has a 1 minute lead over Barrichello in second.
He was absolutely dominating, and I think they threw in a few commercial breaks here too, because all of a sudden we went from like lap 40, and the next thing they said was like 52.
Oh,
So I was like, oh, okay. Senna's now a minute in the lead, and he is now, I think it was at the point where he was lapping the field.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think come the end of the race, there was only one car he didn't lap, and it was second place.
Yeah, nuts.
Insane.
Damon Hill, though, with a beautiful pass on Alan Prost. We kind of, or the commentary made a point, actually, that they were thinking that it wasn't legit. Like, Murray Walker was kind of thinking, like, oh, well, I don't want to say he's not good enough, but, it's only his third race. I don't think he'd be passing someone like Alan Prost that easily.
Seemed too easy.
Yeah. And that was funny that they made that comment.
They also did point out that maybe Prost did have an issue because he was quite slow after that pass.
Yeah, and he mentioned in his post-race press conference that he thought, I don't know if this was, fake or, fake news.
Grain of salt.
Yeah, but he was saying he had some sort of issue with his gearbox throughout the entire race.
Gearbox, and he had an issue with his clutch, he was saying. That's why he stalled it and whatnot, but I don't know. I don't know if I believe all that.
All of that, yeah. I don't know how much of that was fabricated.
For me,
post-race.
I just think
pat
about
in the ego a bit.
I just think about the Senna documentary when Senna just says, it's whenever it's Prost's problem, he doesn't blame himself. He always blames other people or the car and whatnot.
Yeah, and
so.
As much as I'm a Senna fan, though,
and now you can kind of see it though.
But I do think he does get, the shade thrown at him nowadays because Senna's not here.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? People are always going to go to him because it's like he's the only one that anybody can say anything about. Like, if there was Senna haters today, there would be. There's haters of everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There would be guys that could go to him. I don't know. I don't want to paint. He's still a 4-time world champ.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Even his son is a fantastic driver.
Yeah, Nico. Yeah, and is he still in Formula E or is he?
I don't think
left?
so. No,
I
think he's left for other stuff. I think he does Le Mans racing now.
Cool. Very cool.
So after that, after the 1 minute lead, I have Hill make another pit stop for slick tires, 6.9 seconds.
I don't know what number we're at this point. Probably 6, 7.
It's insane.
Like we said, 69 total pit stops throughout this entire race. So that alone tells you something.
And then I have this is when we got the thing that Prost might have an issue with this car because this is with the pass, but it wasn't just for position. He laps him.
Oh yeah, Damon Hill laps Prost.
Yeah.
Because Prost was fighting back at that point, trying to catch up from his stupid long pit stop.
Yeah.
So then again, we have a Prost pitting again for slick tires. It's just Williams making pit stops all over the place.
They were.
And then we have a weird thing from Senna. He goes into the pits, but he just drives through because they don't have the tires ready for him.
Weird. It was until they kind of explained, like, oh, he probably said he was coming in and they weren't ready, so he didn't stay. I was like, what happened? Like, is this like a fake drive-through penalty or something? Like, is he giving himself a drive-through? Like, he's got
a 1 minute lead. What's he gonna lose?
Yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't throw his hand up too. Like, come on, boys.
So that was weird until the commentary figured out as to what had happened, and then again we saw it in the post-race press conference where Senna talked about the fact.
It was just everywhere.
Yeah.
So after that, I have Kevin Warwick spins out of the race, so he's out in the footwear Honda. Believe that is Hill pits again for wets, which was a U set, and just a little bit of a note there.
Yeah.
7 or 10th pits.
Yeah. And then I have here Prost pits again, and then we have the 7 to go sign.
Yes, the 7 laps to go. Johnny Herbert with the spin, but he
Yep.
stayed in 5th place. They mentioned.
Yeah, he kept it going.
He didn't stall it. He kept the car. He spun it. Remember, I was loving it.
Yeah, and he pulled the little donut to keep it going straight. That was sweet.
It's probably one of my favorite things to do in sim racing.
I was just gonna say, well, yeah, that. But
one of
them. I was gonna say it's interesting that they say 7 laps to go. Unlike our modern days now, they always say 10 laps to go.
Yeah, what being the difference between 7 and
just those 3
10.
extra laps. I don't know. I just found it different.
No, that was different because it's like why choose 7 opposed to 10 or 5 or
I mean the 90s
or even
were
at the end.
weird.
I think they showed us two laps to go rather than
the last lap
or final lap. Yeah, weird.
So then after the Herbert spin, we have Barrichello. I say, quote unquote, he is out, but he's still classified come the end.
I know. I just felt bad for him because he had such a good fucking race.
He was a great race, and he retired due to a fuel pressure issue.
So at least it wasn't his fault. It wasn't just a straight spin off the track.
Yeah. But he pulls off the track to pull him off, so no safety car there. Actually, no safety cars this entire race. Now we think about it.
That's crazy that we're
Yeah.
realizing that
And-
an hour into recording this podcast, not an hour into watching the race or talking about doing the podcast, an hour into recording, we're now realizing that this race had no safety cars.
Can we just
That's
take
awesome.
in? Can we take in that we have no safety cars, but where the hell Brundle was parked when his car stalled?
Oh my god.
Dude. and
Nowadays, that'd be a safety car, bro. After seeing what happened with Valtteri parking it in the perfect area and we had a safety car, that would be a safety car now.
150% that would be a safety car. Not only that, Brundle gets out of the car while there's F1 cars driving at him 200 kilometers an hour.
He was debating on it, though. At first, he's like, oh, should I? No, I'll wait. No.
Yeah.
Okay, now the car's gone. I can go
Oh my
now.
God.
Insane.
So after Barrichello exits his race, we get the notification for 2 to go. Nothing major happens in that lap. The last lap comes, and Senna wins. And then a little note there, he tries to bring a fan to give him the Brazilian flag so he can carry it, but he drops it and it gets stuck in the diffuser.
Before that, he stopped on track for like
Oh,
30,
waving,
yeah.
waving.
30 seconds. Like, bring me that. Yes. And he's like kind of making the notion of like a rectangle with his hands. Like,
Flips his visor up as if he could yell to them.
yeah.
Hey,
Bring
hey,
me.
bring me that flag, eh?
Hilarious. But what a fucking entertaining race,
Oh,
boys.
yeah.
What
was-
an entertaining hour that was to watch.
As short as we make it seem, that hour I felt like we had so many more little passes, little more highlights here, there, wherever compared to the 2011 that we watched. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it was a worse race or a bad race. It was just completely different style. You know, we see different era of cars,
Well,
different era of everything, commentary and whatnot.
Yeah,
and
drivers going from being on the track to being in the booth. But forget about how many safety cars did we have in that 2011
oh,
Grand Prix?
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. 5, I think, something like that.
yeah.
You know, too many. That's how many.
Crazy. But Senna celebrating with the fist pump, driving down. I think
Iconic.
you'll see it in the picture for the Look Back show. Just iconic. He did end up getting the flag, like you said, Will, but then he dropped it for a quick second and went in the back tire. And then they didn't show us, but somebody obviously went and got it and gave it back to him. So because he did have it at one point. But yeah, just a celebrating. I don't know, incredible fucking race, incredible moment, and something you talked about after Phil was the raw footage of Senna walking through, getting his hats and maybe showing
just the drivers.
showing a few people. Look, it says my name on the flag. Like
Yeah.
walking, just very different than what we're modern
Yeah.
fans are used to.
Normally they come in, they weigh the scales, and they go right to the waiting room where they get their
And
water.
they're in little hallways constantly.
Yeah.
This was just Senna was out and about. I'm sure that has a little bit to do with the fact that Donington's a little bit of an older style
Oh, yeah.
circuit, and the paddock isn't what they are nowadays. But it was just nice to see that raw footage
yeah.
of him and his emotion, the smile on his face. He just looked like a happy dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a racing car driver that just won. There's a
All right.
straight up explanation for that.
And then we got the Sonic Trophy.
Oh, yeah.
The sponsored Sonic trophy. That was actually sick.
That
I thought it
is
was
so
chocolate
cool.
at first, but it was sick.
It did look like chocolate. Was there a Sonic like Mario Kart game equivalent?
Not at
like
the, not at
Banjo
the- not at the-
Racing?
Not at the time. Not at the time.
Definitely not at the time. But nowadays, yes.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out because that's what it reminded me of. It looked like a trophy that you'd get in Sonic karting or Sonic racing.
I think the reason they sponsored the race at the time is they had the rights to produce like the F1 games at the time.
Which does
Yeah,
sound
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Murray Walker was in those games. I remember. Well, I don't remember, but
Speaking
I've seen.
of the Sonic, I want to go see that new movie then.
Hell yeah!
Perfect timing for this.
At the time that we're releasing this Look Back show, there is a Sonic movie coming out in the theaters. So if you're listening in the future, let us know how the movie was. And then the Drink Milk Love Like song for the fucking celebration just got me.
You said that's a Beethoven song, right?
I believe it's
Believe so?
Beethoven. Don't quote me. I'd have to Google that. I could just type in Drink Milk song and it might pop up as Beethoven.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows it, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
The milk commercials from the 90s?
It's one of the symphony songs though. It's not called Drink Milk Love Life. Is
No,
it?
I just say that because that's
Because it was the commercial.
Drink
Yeah.
milk, yeah, that's what they used to sing in the commercial. But anyway, I thought that was weird because they were playing that song. I guess they didn't have the champagne that
Yeah.
song back then, so they were playing that when they were doing the champagne. And you made a comment how they started the music before the champagne started.
I think that was Will, but yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Oh,
See,
yeah,
I'm getting
yeah.
mixed up now already.
The music started and Will's like, what, no champagne? And then Senna bends over, picks up the champagne ball. He's like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did have separate trophies because there was a Sonic trophy, but then they did have a separate,
they
as
have
you
the-
can
yeah.
see in the look back photo. There's a picture of Senna holding up
But
the
that's
trophy.
not, I kind of wish that Sonic trophy was the only trophy just because it'd be so unique and different.
Oh, yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah, totally agree
Taking that home, putting it right on top of the fireplace.
with that one here. I want to play this just because I didn't get a chance to play it earlier. Just a beautiful sound of that V12 engine. So now we're going to get the top 10.
Top 10? All right.
From Will. Well, you might as well give us all the finishers. I feel
mean,
like
yeah,
there wasn't that many more than 10.
I think there was only 11 finishers.
So there you go.
One extra? Ooh, I don't know.
Right, as we mentioned, Ayrton Senna, your winner for the Donington Grand Prix. Finished, let's see if I can get the difference here. He finished 1 minute, 23 seconds, .199 ahead of Damon Hill in second place.
Wow.
Nearly a minute and a half with Alan Prost in third place, Johnny Herbert in fourth for the Lotus Ford, Riccardo Patrese in fifth for the Benetton Ford, and then Fabrizio Barbaza in sixth place, who started 20th.
Yeah, he started. I guess if you finish, just cross the line. Don't fuck up. Don't make any mistakes. And you never know what can happen. I mean, it didn't get into many points, but...
No, it did. Sixth place.
Oh,
bonus.
sorry.
That's 1
I
point.
thought you...
That's 1 point in the minority.
Sorry, my bad. I thought you were
Wow.
saying he finished the bottom of the finishers.
No, that's...
He finished actually ahead of some people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Christian Fittipaldi in seventh, Alessandro Zanardi in eighth, Eric Comas ninth, Rubens Barrichello in 10th. He's classified. I don't know why he's classified, even though he didn't finish the race. But then we have...
well, no, I think it's because if that something happens on the last lap, something like that, I don't know.
Because he finished...
Did he cross the line?
I'm not sure. It says he did 70 laps out of what was necessary. So I think it's because the guy, Michele Alboreto, finished 11th, but because Michele Alboreto was behind Barrichello, he's still classified.
Oh, I was thinking maybe for a second that, maybe Senna had crossed the line already, so that technically the race was over at that point when the leader crosses the line. I don't know. But either way,
I just think it was because Michele Alboreto was still behind Barrichello.
No,
the finish of the race, so he's still classified.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say that I thought you were wrong. I was just...
And then we have a bunch of retirements. Want me to list retirements or?
It's up to you.
All right, it's a long list. But
just maybe give us I don't know.
All right, we mentioned Warwick, Thierry Boutsen, Andrea de Cesaris, John Alesi, Guri Suzuki, Felipe Alino, Michael Schumacher, Blundell, Gerhard Berger, JJ Leto, Ukyo Kariyama, Martin Brundle, Carl Wendlinger, Michael Andretti, and Luca Bador, who didn't start.
I just want to say that's actually surprising to hear how many retirees we have in a lightly moist race, as they put it, compared to like 2019 Germany when not even that many people.
Well,
retired.
I feel like there was still 6 or 7, but yeah, nowhere near.
I
Not
just feel like
more
it's-
than half the grid like it is here.
That's what you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not more than half the grid. I'd be curious to know, not that I'm going to get you to give me the answer, how many of those are mechanical issues
A lot.
opposed to
Accidents?
because
There's-
I know
yeah.
back then we had a lot more mechanical issues than we
that's-
do
yeah,
now.
That's the reliability
Like, I
between
could-
the different engines.
Yeah, it's here. A lot of them are mechanical issues. A lot of them gearbox.
That's what I figured.
Okay, so that's okay then. That's
Suspension
okay, 'cause
brakes or gearbox goes or even, I was thinking it was going to be that, more
Yeah.
mechanical issues.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is your finishing order for the 1993 Donington Grand Prix.
Yeah, a good one to watch and a better one to talk about, I think. I so far of the two that we've done, this is so far my favorite, I think, as much as the 2011 Grand Prix is regarded as one of the best. I really, really enjoyed this one. But I got a question for you guys. Do you want me to play the jingle from the Pro Wrestling Look Back? I want to ask you this on the air.
Ooh.
The jingle from the pro. It's up to you.
Mix it up a bit.
Let's do it.
down.
Let's make this the new Look Back jingle. And hey, Donovan and Younger, welcome to the show.
Moments of the night.
Dun, dun,
Moments of the night.
dun, dun, dun.
There we are, the moments of the night. I figured I'd bring that over. We've been using that for probably 2 years at the Pro Wrestling Look Back. Why not bring it over to the Look Back pod? I wanted to Formula One it, but I feel like it works anyway.
Yeah.
So let's just keep it. And these are...
Bit of an in-joke.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody who's been listening long enough will fully understand. And if not, it sounds kind of cool anyway. Shout out to, I think Jim Johnson made that. That's the Chris Masters theme song. So shout out to that. But yeah, these are the moments of the night, the moments of the day, moments of the race, I guess, in this setting. But these are stuff that we're going to think about. If somebody asks me about Donington 1993 in 5 days, 5 minutes, 5 months, 5 years, what are the, top 3, let Will know, moments of the night, and maybe 1 or 2 honorable mentions, stuff that, like I said, stuff that's going to stick in your brain when somebody says Donington 1993.
All right, want me to jump into it, start here?
Yeah, you go first, Will.
All right, so 2 honorable mentions for me here. So my first honorable mention is going to be Senna just getting mad passing lap cars.
Yeah.
It's just, you don't get to see Senna mad too often. He's normally calm and collected, especially coming interviews. So when he's letting it out a little bit during the race, it's a bit of interesting, to see.
Yeah, I like that. I like that one.
Well, my second honorable mention is going to be the first lap incident between Andretti and I'm trying to pronounce his name right, Wendlinger. It's a hard name to pronounce.
Paper between the wheels.
You just dropped that in
Sorry.
there. Yeah, Wendlinger.
Yeah, it's just the first lap contact between them. There's not too much contact or incidents we see in the race, so something like this that stands out like that, especially between a McLaren and a Sauber who started up
Absolutely.
pretty competitively.
And you're going to remember it because it was so early on that memorable first lap.
Yeah. So for me, my third worst, or first being the best,
Yeah. First is your most memorable, I guess. You could
is
put
going to be the Fittipaldi and Blundell scuffle when Senna's trying to pass them.
And because Senna could have easily been taken out at that point, and that would have been race over for him.
100%. And this is before he had that huge lead, too.
Yeah, that incident could have changed the total outcome of this race.
And then another note, Blundell just kind of fucked up bad there. Like, he went wide to try and let Senna by, but then he beaches himself in the gravel trap. Like, he did that entirely himself. He threw that away. My second is going to be Senna's 1 minute lead. As someone who was a driver myself and has raced many races,
In karting,
yes.
I just want to establish that for the listeners, that's all.
It's just having a lead of anything over than 10 seconds, let alone a minute, is insane. It's absolutely incredible.
I was going to say, the fact that he's ahead of anyone by a minute is an accomplishment, let alone, second place.
All right, and my number one, the one everyone remembers this Grand Prix for, lap one.
It's got to be, right?
The lap one.
It's got to be. I feel like that's going to be a dittoed thing across the board tonight on the memorable moments of
Senna just unlocked that thing in his brain, and it was just a monster as soon as they saw the green light.
It genuinely looked like it was on rails in those first couple turns.
100%.
Like, it was actually on train tracks for wheels.
Shout out
tires.
to Adrian Newey for designing one hell of a car.
Yeah, he was behind that McLaren too, eh? Yeah, and I should have known that from the Beyond the Grid podcast, so good for keeping me strong here, Will.
Well, give it on to it.
Moments of the night.
Oh, well, I got, you know how it is. I got 3 here and maybe 2 extra honorable mentions. I'll start with the honorables.
As long as they're not in chronological order.
Whoa. I thought you wanted them in chronological
order. Anybody who listens to every episode will appreciate it.
No, don't worry. I thought of that before. Honorable mention. The Mercedes Concept F1 car. That just looked amazing.
That car, yeah.
That car.
The Sauber.
The Sauber it is. That after we found out from at first I thought it was a fucking Batmobile. And then
it looked, and it had super, super low side pods.
Yeah.
Or not side pods, but I guess like right beside the driver's head. It was very unsafe.
Yeah. Low key, one of the best looking F1 cars of history.
Yes.
Yeah. Very different.
I feel like underappreciated too, because you never hear about that car.
I'm almost tempted to go download it on Assetto Corsa.
See if it's out there, or make it.
It might be.
I might make
and then
my
I'll
own
sell
version
it for $1.
There you go.
Second honorable mention here. I'm just gonna throw this out here. It's just a Sega Cup. It's just the fact that they made a separate sponsored cup to give to the winner.
So cool.
You're never gonna see that now.
No, because if you
probably won't see
it will take over the trophy, like we talked about when we were watching the race with, for example, Canadian Grand Prix 2018. Go look at the trophy, and it's the Heineken logo.
Yep, and that's just whatever at this point now. You know, it doesn't pop at your eye.
It's not unique.
No.
Yeah.
It's you want to have those trophy cases be interesting, not just looking like
They've
generic
every year. Oh,
Yeah, the same. Yeah, you have to look at the fine print to see what year it came from.
Yeah, if I walked into a race car's, trophy room, and I saw a freaking Sonic trophy sitting there, that would be my first question. Be like, where the hell did you get a Sonic trophy?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Donington 93, I won it, yeah. Oh, really,
I
Mr.
wonder-
Senna? I would not have never guessed
Hey,
that.
for all we know, that Sonic trophy's at the McLaren headquarters.
It could be.
It
Very well could
I
be.
do
Very
not
well
know.
could be.
But yeah, good. That's another really good one.
So moving on here, now these are my kind of memorable moments of the night. This is what I'm going to be remembering. The bottom one, number 3, I'm going to give it to just that first lap, from within the first turn, just going from 5th to 3rd, and then from 3rd to 2nd, and then 2nd to 1st, and running away with it. It almost seemed like it's like a modern day Lewis Hamilton, but at 10 times more power because of the fact that he did it all within one lap.
You can say that again.
It's like a modern day Lewis Hamilton, just with 10 times more power because he did it within one lap. You know what I mean?
He was. There's not much that Lewis has done. I don't think that can replicate that one lap pace that Senna showed him.
I don't even think it's Lewis himself. I think it's just the type of cars nowadays.
That too.
You don't see
The
5
size.
passes and within 3 turns. You know what I mean?
You need wider tracks too, I think, to be doing the stuff they're
Wider
doing.
tracks and push to pass. Apparently,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on here. How many bodies were in the pit? Like I said earlier, in the actual paddock or in the garages, every single garage looked like there was 40 people standing outside. And
Crammed.
And you could not tell if it was crew members, mechanics, engineers, or random tourists like Princess Diana walking through there. You had no idea. It looked like it was a chaotic, hectic zone. And for some reason, I'm going to remember that. I'll be able to remember that. 93, that was a crazy year. And I'm going to remember it. I remember seeing the pits and seeing how many people were there.
How nuts it was.
And it was raining. Everyone's outside and it's raining.
You don't even think about these sort of things. It's very true. It's very true.
And then to top it off, something that's probably gonna just stick with me is the fact that I think that if Prost never stalled and never had that bad hiccup in the pits, I don't think our boy Ayrton would have been able to just fly by and had everything done easily as it came. You know
Completely
what I mean?
agree with that.
Because
I think
it could have changed the whole race. It could have changed the whole battle in the midfield or in the top field, wherever it was at the time, because we know how hectic it was watching it without these commercial breaks. But
you're right. That stall.
It was a big moment.
Just a big moment of the race.
Just like in the 2011 Grand Prix with Vettel going off and Button going by, it was a big moment, and it's something that you're gonna remember. You're gonna know that this was why it happened.
It was a major contributing factor in Senna winning.
Absolutely,
the race,
absolutely,
for sure. Yeah, no, those are all really good moments, man. I'm happy that you changed it up a bit too. It's interesting. Honorable mentions for me, I gotta say, just the Sonic sponsor alone. Just having Saga all over the place, and even the little, I don't know what it was, but you had the Saga and the Sonic above the race start line, but then there was like this white circle that just had like a picture of Sonic, like doing the thumbs up or something at you, and it's just like, well, I don't know why that's there, but I like it. It's kind of cool.
Do you see any other video game publishers and manufacturers doing that nowadays? Or?
Oh, nowadays, no way. I'm sure you could get some kind of F1 esports, something that they would maybe. But any other racing series doesn't want to associate themselves with F1.
I don't see Codemasters doing that or EA.
Or even an iRacing or something like that. They want to separate themselves from Formula One, and a separate game. It would have to be something so culturally, like, I don't know, something like Super Mario coming back for an original game, and even that wouldn't be Formula One. Wouldn't be the place they'd be advertising.
I can't even see that happening in Japan in a Suzuka race. You know what I mean? Like having it all Mario all over the place.
Maybe there, but even still, you're right.
It'd still be tough.
It would be tough. I think you're going to be sticking to more of the Japanese, car manufacturers and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Pokemon Grand Prix happened in 2021.
I wouldn't mind.
I'll be in Formula E, bro.
They would be the ones to do it too.
Yeah, after the K-pop stuff.
Oh my God, that was perfect, Phil. That was perfect, because if there is a racing series that's going to have a Pokemon Grand Prix, it's definitely going to be Formula E. I like that. Another honorable mention, second one for me, is Senna asking for the flag. I just thought that was a really cool moment for us to see, like a real moment of him asking in real time, just because it meant that it showed how much that shit means to him.
Yeah.
Having the flag driving isn't just, I have a flag, whatever, it's no big deal.
He was repping his country.
Exactly. Like it shows how much he just truly, his patriotism for Brazil was showing.
And at that time, Brazil was not really in the best of standards, as some people may know.
No, and I think that's why maybe he was such an icon for them. And when they did lose him a year and a half later,
travesty.
It was such a big
2 days of mourning.
Yeah, exactly. That city shut down. It was
country.
There you go, country. It's
chills just thinking about it, man.
Yeah, so, rest in peace to Ayrton Senna. But number 3, the pit lane entrance for me. Memorable moments, I'm going to go with that pit lane. I popped. I'm sure you guys remember me jumping up and freaking out and pausing it. Wait, I need to look up. I'm drawing it on paper. So does that mean that the pits that goes here?
Yep.
The elevation change, for one, of just going way the fuck down when you go into the pits. It reminded me of like Abu Dhabi. That's what I thought.
A little tunnel.
Yeah, something like that. So I don't know. I'll always remember, maybe not specifically like Donington 93, but like anytime you say Donington, I'm going to think of that pit lane.
Yep.
Because, and now I'm curious to go try and see if it is in a sim racing game, because then I can go try out this trippy fucking pit lane in a sim race. Number 2, I wanted to be different, so I had to go with Senna's lap number 1. I didn't want to make this my number 1. I figured it would be a pretty popular one across the board, so I like to try and mix it up a little bit. Sometimes I even like to put, negative things as my memorable moments. But again, this was just a really good race, and I haven't really had to do that since we've switched over from the Pro Wrestling Look Back to now the Look Back. A lot of the shows we've been watching have been very positive, so I haven't had to get negative in my memorable moments. But again, not that this is a negative moment. Senna lap 1, we talked about it with Will. Incredible, I don't know, everything he did from 5th to 1st, and the amount of time that he did it in the wet, and like I said, he looked like he was absolutely on fucking rails. And number 1, I gotta be honest, Phil stole it from me here, and I'm not mad about it. I only said it as number 1 because I was trying to be different, but it's the stall in the pits.
Oh, okay.
And and it's not that I said it was number 1 to be different, but I had a feeling that you guys might both choose lap 1, so I wanted to choose something different. But that being me and Phil both chose the stall, and you chose lap 1, so we know what the most memorable moments of this race are. It's lap 1, and it's the Prost stall in the pits, because like we talked about with Phil, it changed the course of how this race was going to go down. A, Prost may have won this race if he didn't stall in the pits, and B, he would have been a lot closer to Senna by the end of the race. So those are my moments of the night, boys. It's I don't know, it's fun to get the jingle in there at the beginning.
That was different.
I might have to keep...
I didn't expect that.
No, I know you thought I was playing the outro music. You're like, wait, we still got stuff to do here. What are you doing?
It's like, this isn't the outro.
I'm like, just wait. But that was a lot of fun. Should we move on to the Dupa and the star of the race?
I am
the Dupa and driver.
Driver, star, I guess.
Racing car driver.
Racing car driver, number 1. Dupa, basically, we talked about it on the first episode. This is kind of more or less the worst driver of the race. It's a Polish word for butt or shit, in a way. Ass. So basically, this is how we determine who we feel like had the worst race or the least, most...
Performance impacting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The least impressive performance in the race.
Yeah.
And then the star or the driver of the race, obviously pretty self-explanatory, being the best driver of the race. Sorry, I feel like I have to explain this still every time because we're still in the early stages of the show.
Yeah, it's fine.
No, it's fine.
Want me to jump in here first?
Yeah, you go first.
All right, my Dupa of the race, Mark Blundell.
I'm not surprised after how hard you were giving it to him earlier on the show.
He was having a fine race, nothing special, and then he just fucked it on his own.
Yeah.
It's like you saw Senna coming, he tried to pass a guy on the outside, and then he just went off on his own. It's not like he got forced off. It's not like he
he was trying to let somebody by and wasn't aware of his surroundings and where he was on the track.
Yeah, that's just a rookie mistake. Absolute
Will
rookie
just giving it to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not much more to say than he really fucked up.
That's fair. What about your driver and or star of the race?
All right, my star, and you might disagree with this, Rubens Barrichello.
Ooh, okay. Because he had a good one and he's still a rookie here?
Yeah, he's still a rookie. He was driving that Jordan better than I want to.
Is that what it was? He was in a Jordan?
Yeah, Jordan. He debuted for Jordan. This is his debut season.
Our boy Eddie.
Yeah.
I was going to listen to his Beyond the Grid too. But I didn't. I just wasn't going to. Anyway.
He was doing fantastic. At one point, I think he led some few laps after in the mix of pit stops. He was up there.
We said that earlier too.
It's a shame he had to retire due to the fuel pressure. Otherwise, he would have had the podium. He would have been second, I think.
Yeah, second or third for sure.
Yeah.
Whether or not Prost would have been able to stay up there, that I think would have been the deciding factor. I think Damon Hill probably would have finished second either way.
That would have been a fantastic result for Jordan.
Yeah. Good picks, man. I think they're both very accurate.
I like those picks. Decent picks, different picks.
What are your picks, good sir?
My picks. Well, so for the Dupa of the night, let's just start. I initially had Prost, but now that we've been talking, thinking, I'm gonna retract that, and I'm gonna give it to Andretti.
Not being able to hold it out at the beginning of the day.
Exactly. You know, he's a big name. Was a big name, whether it be where he made it big or whatnot, but I found like if he was at that McLaren team, he was there for a reason. And if he wasn't able to accomplish what they had set out for him, I just feel like it's just a bad day, and he gets it for that Dupa of the race.
That's
going
fair.
right in, beaching it, and making the contact with, I believe it was the Sauber, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he made the contact with that. So I'm going to have to give it to him.
All right.
Straight and forward. Simple like that.
That seems...
I was going to give it to Prost because of the whole stalling issue and everything, but I can't blame that on him. You know, at the end of the day, he still drove good. He still had a potential. So that's why I retracted that at this point.
Okay.
And then the driver of the racing car driver of the day, you guys are probably going to guess this. It's not Senna. Just kidding. I did have Senna initially, but I'm going to take that back, and I'm going to give it to Damon Hill.
Okay.
Being
he did a really
rookie,
good job.
Yeah, being a rookie, and being onto second place and being against Senna, someone that, and this obviously you can see he's the Rainmeister of this race.
Yeah.
Made everyone look like they were a joke. Being in second place, I feel like, is a first place for him.
And Damon being so young.
So young.
Third race in his career at this point. He's up there. I said this to you guys in the post-race press conference. He's up there with Senna and Prost, and think about everything that this guy was racing go-karts probably or Formula Renaults or whatever in 88 and 87 when these guys were battling it out at Suzuka and running each other off the track. And I don't know, it's
you made a good
very
point.
Cool.
You said like it would be like Hamilton and Vettel with Leclerc sitting up there, or Verstappen or Albon.
Yeah.
I guess Albon at this point now would be a better example, but I found that that's literally, you could see those three sitting there, and it's amazing to see that there's young talent that has the potential and has the means and wants to be up there.
And I think it's kind of cool knowing that all three of them are world champions, like after this.
Yeah, and in the future, yep.
Is again and just another one of those things that kind of gives more credit to Damon Hill for.
Regardless of that, Williams had all these little advantages, I guess you can say. That's
Formula One.
I'm not even gonna steer into that direction. I'm just saying that Damon Hill had a good race. He showed that he was able to pass Prost, regardless if Prost had mechanical issues or not. He showed that he was able to hold his line and keep his line and make numerous tire changes, and still keep up there. You know what I mean?
You didn't spell it like Prost.
Exactly. There you go. Driver of the day for me is Mr. Damon Hill in the Williams Renault.
With all that being said, I guess I should move forward. By the way, it was a good pick for driver of the day. I was expecting Senna, but I'm
You're glad
pleasantly
I changed
surprised.
it.
Pleasantly surprised with your pick for driver of the day. Dupa for me is kind of, I had to go back and forth on this one a little bit. Originally I was going to give it to Barrichello, and then I kind of thought, I don't know if he deserves it. It wasn't, when I found out that he didn't spin and it was a mechanical issue, I kind of wanted to take him off the list there. And this may be a controversial pick because parts of what they did were really good, I think. But parts of what they did, I think, were a little chaotic and a little bit too much. And that's, to me, is the Renault pit crew. And I think, I don't want to take anything away from the fact that they executed 6 or 7 pit stops. I think I want to take away from the fact that they needed to have 6 or 7 pit stops. I think they were a little bit, I don't want to say running around like chickens with their head cut off, but they were a little unsure of what to do. And you've seen McLaren being a little more reserved with their pit stops. Senna being, I don't think we need to pit right now. And then
I'll stay out.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So whereas Renault was more, we have to do this, we have to do that. The car says this, the car says that. So they were just jumping to the gun a little bit too quickly. And then look what happens. You get your driver makes a little bit of a mistake, and then we're in the fucking pits for 40 seconds and we're messing around, and all these pit stops that we made to try and save time and be on the right tires all goes out the fucking window because we're sitting in the pits for 40 seconds.
So now with that being said, you're saying they're looking at numbers. Now you're seeing where these numbers are coming from.
Exactly.
This high-end, high-advanced, highly sophisticated electronic car rolling down the road, rolling down the track.
That's the extra numbers that they probably have, the more telemetry that comes off of that car.
So now they're seeing these numbers thinking in theory that this is going to work better when you have a driver out there actually doing it and saying, no, I'm going to stick with this because this part of the track is dry, but this part is damp. But the wet tires aren't good on the dry part, but are okay on the wet.
Exactly. And it becomes too much thinking.
Exactly.
I'd be very, very curious to get the number. I don't know if we can get it or not, but how many pit stops Barrichello made? Because if Barrichello made 4 stops, let's say, or even 3, and the only reason that he didn't finish up there with the Williams is because he spun out or his
fuel pressure
error, then yeah, he had a really friggin' good day. And it shows you that maybe Williams, I mean, take Senna out of the equation for a second because he did so well. It shows you how not good I think Williams
played it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's almost like they were Ferrari strategists there.
2019 Ferrari strategist, yeah. And then my star works out perfect. I thought we were going to have this across the board, but Ayrton Senna.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
I had to give it to him.
I thought you guys were both going to pick it, if I'm completely honest.
absolutely.
So it's we talked about it all for the last hour and a half. The guy's a god. His first lap capabilities in this race, his abilities to drive like he's on rails and know when certain corners are wet and other corners aren't wet. And I don't know, go listen to the Martin Brundle podcast again. I think the third time I'm probably bringing up Beyond the Grid on here, but it's a good freaking show. So and it doesn't have any relation to this show. It's if you're listening to this show, it's not because you want to listen to it instead of Beyond the Grid. They're very different. But go listen to the episode with Martin Brundle and listen to him talk about some of the stories of Senna being able to see things in the wet
that other drivers couldn't.
That he just couldn't, because there's just go listen. I don't even want to get into it here, but
yeah, I remember.
It was incredible stuff, amazing race to watch, and that's my star of the race, Mr. Senna. Should we get into the lights?
Get into the lights.
I'm down.
Final stuff we got to get to here, and I guess I'll let people know quickly. The lights is our version of the star rating, similar to the pro wrestling shows where they give them 5 stars for a really good match, or even a movie or something rated out of 5 stars for a movie. 5 lights in racing. We didn't quite have 5 lights in this race. It looked like we had 4.
I think it just red to green.
Right? Just 2.
Was
That's
it?
all he said, yeah.
So 2 red and then 2 green. It switched, but like in modern Formula 1, we have the 5 lights out and away we go. So the way we do it here is 5 lights is 5 stars, and basically another race that you'd want to go back and rewatch in the future, or tell somebody to watch if they were going to be going to watch it. So
all right, I'll jump right in, and I was going to say 4 to 5 lights.
4 to 5 lights for Will. Do you have any? It's just a good one. It's not perfect, but it's not.
It's a solid one. I do have to say there's points where it does get a little boring. Commentary cuts out, and it's just cars lapping. Right?
But I love the sound of it.
Oh, I love the sound too. I have to admit.
There it goes. Wait for it.
No, you clicked it again.
I fucked it right.
You lost it. Oh, it's gone.
I agree with you though.
Trust me, I love the sound too. It's just it gets a little boring in those spots, especially for.
Sorry,
still going.
I can still hear him.
It's just, for me, it gets a little boring in spots, and the pit stops I find them get a little repetitive towards the later stage of the races.
The pit stops here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little, this special circumstances in this race.
Yes, 100%. It gets a little repetitive, like, oh, he's making another pit stop.
Oh, another 2 cars coming in for a pit there.
So I got to give it the 4 out of 5. There's some good moments, a lot of good moments. A really great race, Senna dominance, love all that. It's just, it wasn't, like, outstanding for me,
I totally agree.
Well, for me, I'm going to have to agree with Will. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Not necessarily that it was boring parts or anything, but also we don't know if it was the production or if it was just this VOD that we watched. But yes, there was times that it was really quiet, or it was the camera was just in an area that has no point of being there. It's watching whatever it is watching, no action, and then it has like a cut to an accident, like the Andretti and Sauber going off, but you don't even see exactly what happens. You just see them sliding into the dirt.
You didn't see the contact.
Yeah, for me, if we were able to rewatch this but have a little bit better of not production but the actual stream of whatever happened in the off moments, in the commercial moments, I would say give it a 5 out of 5, because there is a lot of action passes. Sure, there's pit stops, but those pit stops create chaos, and those chaos creates magic and beauty with other teams, and then you have teams going off, and then it's just all up and down in this race. So for me, it's a solid 4 out of 5. It's just I wish that 93, but what else can you expect at that point? You know what I mean?
No, I like what you said, and mine's going to be very similar with there's ways that I feel like this could have been a 5, because I'll ditto both you guys, and I'll say that I gave this 5 lights or 4 lights as well, with a little bit of an asterisk in just the fact that I think this is a weird request, but I feel like if I had this race with modern graphics and commentary, this would be a 5 stars for me, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just the lack of information that I was shown. I didn't know what lap we were always on. I didn't know how many pit stops Damon Hill had.
The commercial breaks.
The commercial breaks. It's not even the fact that there were commercial breaks. It's the fact that we didn't really know because they cut in and out of them so quick. I picked up on the first few, and then at that point, I think...
You lost track.
Yeah, and maybe they were popping up when they gave us those top
now
five.
I'm thinking about it, is actually kind of weird. Like, they have the entire feed. Why would the feed randomly cut from a commercial break unless they're not pulling from the recordings of the cameras?
But that's what I don't...
We're wondering.
Yeah, I don't think they have the feed. I think back then, like, when it went to commercial, the cameraman lit a cigarette or whatever. Like, you know, I'm not saying that's what he did.
Commercial in 3, 2.
Yeah.
And they start filming again. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that, but I don't think they have full archived of every entire Grand Prix. I don't know for sure. That's a...
It probably wasn't digital back then, too, recordings. It was probably still, like, tape and whatnot.
Definitely possible, for sure. And
Unless it was on a floppy disk, but that'd be fine.
I just think, yeah, like, if you added some more information to this race, especially the length of it's not too long. There's a little bit of dry, a little bit of wet, and multiple pit stops. It had everything that I want from a Formula One race, aside from some of the information that I'm used to receiving while I watch a race.
Even if it had as simply as the lap number at the top left, like we do now, it would just make it, you would be able to follow so much more easier. You wouldn't feel like you're jumping between things.
Because, yeah, even when they cut from one scene to another, we would see it cut from 7 to 10 laps, and then we would know, oh, we just missed 3 laps because of the commercial, where we didn't know that kind of stuff. We had to rely on, you know, the on-screen graphics that we did get every time to time.
Or if them mentioning who's coming in for a pit stop at
on what lap.
Exactly.
It puts you into the seat of a Formula One fan in 1993, right?
Yeah. This is back in the days where it was actually going to the race was more beneficial than watching from home.
No, absolutely. And I think that's one of my favorite things about this, whether it's the Pro Wrestling Look Back or the Formula One Look Back, and anything we do in the future, and, you know, movies, TV, whatever. It's just, you get to put yourself in the seat and look through the glasses or look through the eyes of somebody that was watching that event or that thing at that time. I don't know. One of my favorite things I think about what we do here at the Look Back Show, boys. But with all that being said,
hey, that's the outro music.
That's the right. That's the right one. I think it's been another awesome show here at the Look Back Podcasts.
Yep.
The Formula One Look Back Show for the European Grand Prix 1993. If there's anything else you guys want to say, get her in now.
Nah, that's it. I'm good. Let's just go.
Let's go. Let's go. But don't forget, before we go follow us. Instagram and Twitter at the Look Back Show. You can send us a DM, PM, subscribe, all that good stuff. Well, you don't subscribe on Instagram and Twitter, do you? You just follow. Give us a follow over there.
Subscribe on YouTube, though, brother.
Yes. Check out the Roundtable videos and all the Look Back shows. Everything's on YouTube under the Look Back Show. If you're not listening already on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and Google Play, you can go do that and hit the 5 stars. We'd much appreciate that. Leave us a good comment, like I always say. I mean, well, if not, if it's a bad one, I want to hear too, but preferably a good one. That's what we always say.
Check out the last episode, too.
Yes, the last Roundtable, the last Formula One Look Back.
Yep.
More pro wrestling look backs coming. All different types of shows from all of us here at the Look Back Podcasts. If you want some merch, go over to teespring.com/the Look Back Podcast. You can get shirts, mugs. I'm going to have a little bit of trouble with that banner that I'm going to be speaking about there on the Roundtable, but we'll come to that in the future. Go get yourself a mug in the meantime, and maybe a new shirt with the Formula One car on there. I don't know.
F1LB.
It's got the halo. It's a little new. It's modern. You can take it to the race. Show off the Formula One Look Back Show. But with all that being said, go give me a follow on Instagram and Twitter if you want. It's at Salsa, SEELSA.
On Twitter at Laterel, GLATERELG.
On Twitter at Honda Tech Phill.
And that's everybody. At the Look Back Show is where you can get at us. We thank you again. We are the Look Back Podcast. This is the Formula One Look Back Show, European Grand Prix 1993. I'm Nick.
I'm Will.
And I'm Phill.
Stay classy.